My daughter-in-law dressed her newborn in a boss baby onesie and called him the heir to the company. So, I woke her up from her delusion. My son Leo married Francesca 4 years ago, and for 2 years she was fine. Polite, helped with dishes, asked about the business like she meant it, called me ma, and brought me flowers on my birthday. Then she got pregnant and something flipped in her like a breaker. The day the doctor said it was a boy, she became a different person. The next Sunday she sat at the head of my table. That had been my seat for 26 years. I didn't say anything because she was pregnant. That was my first mistake. The week after she sat there again. The week after that, she rearranged the place settings so Leo sat next to her and I was pushed to the middle. I built the company when Leo was still in diapers. Started with a catering contract for a school district and grew it into a food distribution operation serving 3 counties, 42 employees, a warehouse, contracts with restaurants and hospitals across the region. I did all of it while raising 2 kids alone after my husband Bentley passed. Leo never showed any interest in any of it. He went to school for graphic design and worked at a print shop downtown, and he was happy, and that was enough for me. My daughter Angie had been with me since she turned 19. She started on the phones, moved to accounts, took over client relations, then the warehouse floor. 3 years ago, I made her operations director because she earned it. She knew every driver's name, every route, which clients paid late. Angie was the business. Francesca never paid attention to Angie because Angie was quiet and wore jeans to Sunday dinner and didn't talk about herself. Francesca talked about herself enough for everyone at that table. After the baby was born, it got worse. She named him Leonard after my son and started calling him Little Leo, future CEO. She said it at the hospital, at the christening, at every Sunday dinner for 3 months. She put him in a onesie that said boss baby and made Leo take a picture in front of my warehouse like it was an announcement. She told the cousins at Easter she was already looking at business schools because her son was going to take over the family empire. She used that word, empire, for a food distribution company in Bridgeport. Then she started giving me instructions. Start a college fund from the profits. Put Leo on the board so he could learn the ropes. Step back because fresh blood mattered. She said all of it at my dinner table while eating food I cooked. I told her the company wasn't something that got passed down automatically. She looked at me like I had said something stupid. He's your grandson, she said. He's blood. Who else would get it? I said I hadn't decided anything yet. She smiled like she pitied me. You should start thinking about it because Leonard is going to need something to step into. She said that to the woman who woke up at 4 in the morning for 15 years to load delivery vans before the sun came up. So the following month I called a family dinner. Not a Sunday one, a separate one. I told everyone I had an announcement about the company. Francesca showed up in a new dress with her hair done and the baby in a little button down like he was about to accept an award. She sat at the head of the table without asking and pulled Leo down next to her. She kept whispering to the baby, "This is your night, little man." I stood up and said I was stepping back from daily operations. Francesca squeezed Leo's arm so hard he winced. I said I had spent 3 years preparing someone to take over. Francesca was already starting to smile. I said Angie would be taking over as CEO effective the 1st of next month. Francesca's smile didn't fall. It froze. It stayed stuck on her face like it forgot how to leave. The room went quiet for 5 seconds. That felt like 5 minutes. Then Francesca let out a fake laugh. The kind you do when you're buying yourself time. "That's wonderful for Angie," she said. "Really, she deserves something to keep her busy." She said it like Angie had just signed up for a pottery class. Then she squeezed Leo's hand. "We should celebrate your sister, right babe?" Leo just nodded like he wasn't sure what else to do. Esteban raised his glass and said, "To Angie," and the family clapped. Awkward, but real. Angie stood up with her eyes wet and said the only thing she ever said in front of a crowd. "Mom, everything I know about running a business I learned from watching you. I'm not going to let you down." Dinner felt almost normal after that. People started talking again. Somebody brought up Angie's first week at the warehouse when she sent a delivery truck to the wrong address and had to chase it down in her own car. Everyone laughed. Even Angie laughed. I sat there and felt this wave of relief come over me that I had not felt in months. Like I had been holding my breath since the day Francesca first sat in my chair and I could finally let it out. Francesca was quiet but pleasant. She did not make any more comments about Leonard or the company or the future. She just ate and smiled and bounced the baby on her knee without any of the usual commentary. When dinner was done, she got up and helped clear. She carried plates with me, wiped down the counter, asked where I kept the foil so she could wrap up the leftovers. Standing there watching her, I started to feel something I did not expect. Guilt. I wondered if I had misjudged her. Maybe the chair thing and the onesie and the future CEO talk were just a new mom being excited and a little over the top. Maybe I had been so focused on protecting the business that I had turned normal enthusiasm into a threat. I actually felt bad for a second. That is how good she was. When she and Leo were leaving, she stopped at the front door with Leonard against her shoulder and asked, sweet as anything, "Ma, can I talk to you for a second? Alone?" Leo took the baby out to the car. I stood in my own doorway expecting an apology, maybe a thank you for dinner, maybe even her saying she was happy for Angie. I was ready to meet her halfway. The second Leo cleared the driveway, her whole face changed. The soft eyes went hard. The smile vanished. It was like watching someone pull off a mask. She leaned in close enough that I could smell her perfume and she said, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I didn't move. She kept going, calm and clear and cold. "Leo is your son. Leonard is your blood. And you just handed everything to your daughter like she matters more than your own grandson. I'm going to give you one chance to fix this. You call another dinner. You tell everyone you're splitting the company. Half to Angie, half in a trust for Leonard. Or I promise you, you will never hold that baby again." She didn't wait for me to answer. She walked down the steps, got in the car, and closed the door. The dishes were still warm in the sink. The flowers she had brought me 3 months ago were still dried out on my windowsill. I threw them away that night. I called Angie first thing in the morning and told her every word. Then I called my lawyer and asked him to make every piece of the CEO transition airtight. Every signature, every deadline. By Wednesday night, my phone rang at 9:30, and it was Leo. I almost did not pick up because I figured he was calling to confirm dinner plans, and I was already in bed with the TV on. But something made me answer, and the second I heard his voice, I knew this was not a casual call. He sounded tight, like he was trying to hold something in. "Mom, Francesca told me what you said to her after dinner." I sat up in bed. "What did she say?" I said. Leo let out this long breath like he he had been practicing the call in his head for hours. She said you told her Leonard would never be part of the family business, that he was not welcome. She was crying all night. My chest went cold, not because I was scared, because I was hearing my own son repeat words I never said, words that were the exact opposite of what happened. Francesca had not just twisted the story. She had handed Leo a brand new one. I told him exactly what she said at the door, word for word, the threat, the split, the baby. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then Leo said, "That doesn't sound like Francesca. She loves you. She wouldn't say that." Then he said, "Francesca thinks maybe we should skip Sunday dinner this week. You know, just to give everyone space." The rhythm of it. Those weren't his words. Leo said things like, "Let's take a breather." He didn't say, "Give everyone space." That was her voice in his mouth. And then I heard it, barely, in the background, a whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew the sound. She was right there next to him, feeding him lines. I told him I loved him, and I was not changing the company decision. He said, "Then maybe we need some time apart." And he hung up. I called my friend Valentina and cried through the whole story. She told me to go see Leo at the print shop alone, in the daytime, without Francesca anywhere near. So the next morning I did. He was behind the counter looking like he hadn't slept. The minute he saw me, his body stiffened. I said, "I'm not here to argue. Call Esteban." He was 3 feet from the front door that night. He heard every word. Leo stood there a long time, looking at the phone next to the register, and then he picked it up. Esteban answered on the second ring. I watched my son's face change as his cousin told him what he had heard. The threat, the ultimatum, the ice in her voice. Leo didn't say anything for a long time after he hung up. He just stared at the floor. I didn't push him. He needed a minute to understand that the woman sleeping next to him had used their son as a weapon against his mother. Sunday came and I cooked the same dishes and set my chair back in the middle. Esteban came first, then Angie, fixing her ponytail the way she only does when she's nervous. Then Harvey, my oldest friend, with a bottle of wine. He had never asked why I needed him there. He just came. Then the door opened and there was Francesca, full makeup, fresh hair, holding Leonard in a blue button-down outfit like he was going to a job interview. "Something smells amazing, Ma," she said, and walked straight to the head of the table and sat down. Leo came in behind her and met my eyes for a second. He gave me a tiny nod, so small you would have missed it if you weren't looking. He was here. He was awake. And Francesca had no idea. Dinner was almost normal for 20 minutes. Then she put her fork down and looked around the table like something had just occurred to her. "I was reading this article about family businesses," she said. "Did you know 60% fail in the second generation? Some companies lose everything when the wrong person takes over." And when she said wrong person, she turned her head and looked right at Angie. I felt Angie tense up next to me. Under the table, I squeezed her knee. "Not yet," I whispered. Angie picked her fork back up. Francesca didn't stop. She put her hand on Leo's arm and said, "Actually, Leo and I have been discussing our own plans for the future. Leo is considering starting his own branch of the business. There's a real market in the next county over." She said it like it was a done deal. Like Leo, who worked at a print shop because he loved it, had suddenly decided to run a food distribution company. Everyone at the table felt it. That moment when somebody says something that isn't true and nobody wants to be the one to call it out. So I did. I put my fork down. I looked at Leo, not at Francesca, at Leo. "Leo, is that true?" The whole table went quiet. Leo looked up at Francesca. She smiled at him. That smile that looked supportive, but if you looked closely you could see was a leash. Then he looked at me, and I saw my son in there, the real one. He said, "No, I never said that." Francesca's fingers tightened on his arm. Through her teeth she hissed, "Babe, we talked about this." Leo pulled his arm away, not fast, just firm, like he was taking something back that belonged to him. He said, "No, you talked about it. I listened. There's a difference." Francesca's face was the face of someone who pulls a string she's been pulling for years, and for the first time it doesn't move anything. She looked around the table for someone to fix it for her. Esteban was looking at her. Angie was looking at her. Harvey was looking at her. Nobody moved, so she went for the baby. She picked up Leonard and held him out toward the table like she was presenting him to a board. "All I want is what's best for this baby, for your grandson, for your nephew. Is that really so wrong?" Her voice cracked. She was so good at this. She knew how to make a room of people feel like the bad guys for asking a simple question. But Harvey had been at the other end of the table all night, barely saying a word, and I think she had forgotten he was there. He set his glass down and said, "Quiet," but it carried. "What's wrong is using a baby to guilt-trip the woman who built everything on this table." Nobody breathed. Francesca's face went red, the kind of red that starts at the neck and climbs. Harvey didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. She got up, grabbed Leo's hand, and walked out my front door without saying goodbye. 3 days later, my phone rang in the morning, and it was Angie. "Mom, Francesca just walked into the warehouse. She told the front desk she's here on behalf of the family and she needs to see the books." I grabbed my keys. I was in the car in under a minute. Her car was parked in the front spot like she had a reserved space. I walked in past my front desk woman who tilted her head toward the back like she was trying to warn me. I could hear Francesca's voice before I turned the corner. She was sitting in the break room with 2 of my employees, hands folded on the table like she was running a meeting, saying, "There are changes coming. The family is restructuring leadership. I just want you all to be prepared." The guy with the clipboard looked at me with pure relief. I told both employees to go back to work. Then it was just me and Francesca. "You need to leave," I said. She crossed her arms. "This building has my son's last name on it. I'm family. I have every right to be here." "You have no right. You're not an employee. You're not an owner. You're not on any document with this company's name on it. Leave now or I call the police." She was looking for a crack. She didn't find one. She picked up her purse and walked out slow like she wanted me to know she was leaving on her own terms. From the front window, I watched her stand by her car making a phone call, loud enough to carry across the parking lot. "Your mother just humiliated me in front of her employees. She threatened to have me arrested." At the warehouse, Leo, in front of people, pacing back and forth, waving her free hand around, pointing at the building like it had attacked her, making sure anyone in the lot could see how upset she was. A performance for nobody. Angie came up beside me at the window and we both watched. After a couple of minutes, Francesca got in her car and sat there for a while, still talking, and then finally she backed out and drove away. Angie said, "She is going to try something else. She always does." That evening, Leo called and his voice was tired in a new way. "Francesca says you embarrassed her at the warehouse. She says you made her look crazy in front of your staff." I sat down at my dining table. "Leo, she walked into my business business and held a meeting with my workers. What was I supposed to do? Long pause. Then his voice got low and cracked in the middle. Mom, I think she needs help. Real help. But she won't listen to me. She only gets worse when I push back. I closed my eyes. My son wasn't calling to defend Francesca. He was calling because he was stuck in a house with a woman who twisted every conversation and held their baby up like a shield, and he didn't know how to get out. I told him to come to Sunday dinner. Bring her. I needed the whole family in one room. I'd handle the rest. Okay, Mom, he said. I spent 4 days getting ready. I told Angie to bring the transition paperwork. All of it. Every signed document. The board resolution. I told Valentina and Harvey to be there as witnesses. I told Esteban he was going to need to repeat what he heard at the door. And I called Marcella, my attorney's assistant, and asked her to keep her phone on Sunday in case Francesca tried any legal threats. This wasn't going to be a fight. This was going to be a presentation. Sunday I cooked the full spread. Chicken, rice and beans, roasted vegetables, cornbread, sweet potato pie. I set the head of the table empty. No place card, no plate, just empty. I wanted to see who would claim it. Esteban came first. Harvey came with wine and took the far end without being told. Valentina hugged me long in the hallway and whispered, "You got this." Angie came in with a manila folder edge sticking out of her bag. We didn't say a word about it. We didn't need to. Then Francesca walked in like she was arriving at a party in her honor. New cream blouse with gold buttons, hair blown out, earrings, Leonard against her chest in a little gray vest. She walked straight to the head of the table and sat down. Leo took a seat near the middle without a word. She bounced Leonard on her knee and said, "It's so nice when the whole family is together." She thought the empty chair had been left for her on purpose. I let her think that. I made small talk. I passed dishes. I complimented Leonard's vest. I wanted her so comfortable in that chair she forgot she never earned the right to sit in it. About halfway through dinner, I put my fork down and stood up. Not fast, not dramatic, just stood up. Francesca straightened her back and reached under the table for Leo's hand. She thought I was about to walk it back. The victory was already written in her eyes. I looked right at her. 3 weeks ago, after I announced Angie as CEO, you waited until Leo was at the car. You stood in my hallway and told me I had made the biggest mistake of my life. You told me to call another dinner and split the company. Half to Angie, half in a trust for Leonard. And then you said if I didn't do it, I would never hold my grandson again. You used a baby as a threat against his own grandmother. The table went silent. Not the awkward silent from the first dinner. A different silent. Francesca's face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise. Panic. Then the beginning of a defense. I held up my hand. Palm out. I'm not finished. Last week you walked into my warehouse. You told the front desk you were there on behalf of the family. You sat in my break room and told my employees that leadership was changing. You lied to my workers to undermine my daughter in her own building. My daughter who has given 10 years to this company. I nodded at Angie. She reached into the bag, pulled out the manila folder, set it on the table, and opened it. Signed CEO transition documents. Board resolution, operating agreement. Every page signed, every page dated. I said, this decision was made legally, unanimously, and 6 months ago. It's done. It's not up for discussion. The folder sat there between the dinner plates like a line drawn in the sand. Francesca stared at the signatures. Something cracked behind her eyes. Not all the way, but enough. She turned to Leo. She reached for his hand. This time Leo didn't take it. Her voice came out smaller than I had ever heard it. I was just trying to protect our son's future. Is that a crime? Harvey said, calm and low. Nobody's talking about Leonard's future. We're talking about you showing up to a business you don't work at and lying to people who do. Then Esteban said, and I heard what you said to her that night, Francesca. I was right by the door. Every word. Her head turned face to face around the table. She was counting, looking for one person, one single person, who was going to back her up. She came up empty. She turned to Leo one last time. Her eyes were wet. Are you really going to let them do this to me? Leo looked at her, and I saw something on his face I had never seen in all his years. Not anger, not sadness. Exhaustion mixed with something clear and calm, like a fog had finally lifted. He said, nobody is doing anything to you, Francesca. You did this to yourself. She let go of his arm like he had burned her. She stood up fast. Her chair scraped. She picked up Leonard and held him tight against her chest, blinking fast, her chin trembling. Fine. If this is how this family treats me, then maybe Leonard and I don't belong here. She said it the way someone says something when they're waiting for the other person to say no, please don't go. She stood there and waited. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. The clock on the wall ticked. Leonard made a small sound against her shoulder. Still nobody moved. I got up and walked toward her. Not fast, not with my hands up. I stopped a couple of feet away and I kept my voice low. You will always belong at this table, Francesca, but you will never own it. This company isn't a birthright. It isn't a crown you put on a baby's head. It is the thing I built with my own hands while I was grieving my husband and raising 2 children alone. And I chose Angie because Angie earned it. Not because I love her more, not because I love Leonard less, because she earned it. I touched Leonard's cheek with the back of my finger. His skin was warm. He turned his head toward my hand the way babies do. Francesca had nothing to say. No comeback, no spin, no smile, no performance, just tears and a baby and a room full of people who had stopped pretending. Leo stood up, walked over, and gently took Leonard from her arms. He carried the baby back to the table and sat down. Francesca stood there with her arms empty. After a long moment, she pulled out a chair on the side of the table, a regular chair, and she sat in it. She put her hands in her lap and stared at her plate and didn't say a word. I sat back down in the middle. The folder stayed on the table where Angie had set it. Nobody asked her to move it.